Hello everyone. Sometimes you just throw caution to the wind and jump into a project and assume it's going to work out well. What does my AI think? I'm going to start this journal by talking about things I'm doing to. What does it think I'm doing things to? Improve my life. I'm going to start with the things that I'm doing to improve, and then it gets repetitive. I'm going to start with NBDev. NBDev has already improved my life by making it easier to write code that is more organized and easier to maintain. All right. Python, Jupyter Notebooks. Jupyter Notebooks have changed the world. It's one of the great untold stories of tech. Because of the crisis of reproducibility in science. And so, Jupyter Notebooks are a wonderful development environment. They're experimental. And great for documenting things, for mixing documentation with code. Right? These are the things that are Jupyter Notebook's core strengths. Now, VS Code has a Jupyter Notebook extension that makes it possible to use Jupyter Notebooks in a more traditional IDE environment. However, it makes them into .py files. And those are the files you want to use in a production environment. So VS Code erases the desirable split between your experimental and production environments. NBDev does this way better. So I'll just show you. It's not something a lot of people use yet, but it's one of those super trends out there. Sorry about the sounds from outside. I am Mike Levin, SEO in New York City, so you will hear New York City. This is NBDev-ifying, one of the best URLs in all creation. And they will tell you how to get started. But I will do the basics with you right now. It's one of those, pip installable things. So I'm pretty sure I've pip installed it already. But if you haven't, you can open up one of your terminals. If your terminal is the same terminal from which Python executes, right? I use these virtual environments, and I know that my Python here is the same as is powering my Jupyter Notebooks here. It's actually the very same executable. That's not the case for many people. So what you may want to do is find a cell here and do from inside the cell pip install NBDev, right? But I prefer to do it from command line. Pip install, I'll do a -u just in case we need to update it, NBDev, and that will put it on your system. And it puts a whole bunch of stuff on your system. I don't even understand the depth of what's in here. But it is a improved workflow is what we're talking about. You know, there are workflows, there's tool chains and workflows and all that happy stuff. And NBDev promotes a particular workflow that lets you have a notebook and lets you have a .py file. And then you can export the py file as many times as you like, different variations of it, and you have granular control over how you export these things. So now that it's there, I can NBDev init inside a directory that's already, you know, notebookish, right? So I have this MOZ repo here, and you're seeing the files I have in there. So if I go over to that location here, clear, make my font big again, and go into the MOZ repo. cd:/repos MOZ. And you'll see kind of the same files here as you see over here. And what you see here is more or less what's over here, and it's already a GitHub repo. If you want to check this stuff out, it's incredibly useful. Already looking, if you want to learn the links API, the MOZ links API, you just go over to GitHub /me MIKLEVIN/MOZ. Hey, lady cat. My cat may come to visit. I hope she walks in front of the camera. So, yeah, you can just drill down on any of these. They're going to be in a directory called NBS pretty soon, so it's going to be a little harder to find because that's what NBDev does. But if you click down on one of these notebooks, you can actually see my work, and you can follow along with these steps that describes the links API. And then it teaches you Python, teaches you how to do your global imports, how to load login credential type values from an external file. It teaches you, how to configure your, constants and your variables. And then it hits the API. It actually hits the API, shows you your different endpoints. It documents the endpoints, describes what they do. It gives you a sample request that can go against each of those endpoints, and then we write a function to hit the endpoint that it just takes which sub endpoint and which request dictionary, and then we step through all the endpoints for sub endpoint in the list of sub endpoints. It just hits that MOZ function and then populates a database, and then you step through the database and it shows you the data it fetched. So this is one of a whole variety of repos that I'm creating for MOZ. Or actually it's one repo, a whole variety of notebooks and functionality. On my last video, you'll see how I actually did the browser automation, and I created, I'm giving an API to something which currently only has a web user interface, if you can understand that. Something that you couldn't automate really if you wanted to, unless you had the skills to automate a browser. Then you can automate anything. If you can do it as a human, you can automate a browser to do it. So that's where we're kind of at, but everything gets better when you sprinkle in the magic fairy dust that is NBDev. And instead of all that marketing mumbo jumbo for it, I'm just going to go over and do what I know is possible. NBDev underscore init, if I remember correctly. Oh, not found. NBDev. You know what's going on there? These windows were open before I started doing this exercise. So I just am going to close it and open it, because after doing pip install and after these shell scripts run, your environment is subtly changed. Usually with environment variables it puts in there, it might drop some things into sbin, which is why you can do things like NBDev cd moz NBDev _tab, and it'll just show you tab. Yeah, it'll show you all the commands that are available. Oh, it took it twice. Okay. And yeah, I think I had it right. NBDev. Oh, new, not init. It's NBDev new. It might have actually worked the first time now that I'm realizing it. So there it is. NBDev new. Oh, let me do it before and after. Clear. ls. So you can see the files that are in there beforehand. NBDev new. And it might walk me through a wizard to answer some questions if I remember correctly the last time I did this. And the main thing is this settings.ini that gets created, and there's a bunch of things that actually have to be set, although it's inferring quite a few from Git. That's really nice. Some things are not found, but that's fine. I don't do this auto documentation of Quarto. I know it's becoming popular, but I kind of stick to the bare minimum stuff that I need to do. So you can see there's a significantly different amount of stuff after NBDev new from before. It was only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 files. Now it's 4, 8, 12, 16, 17, 18, 19 files. The main one we want to look at, though, is this settings.ini. So we can vim settings.ini, and we just look to see if there's anything that needs to be set that has not currently been set. Yeah, I'm probably going to go with most of the defaults that it's set in here. I'm so thrilled it inferred so much from the repo it was in. Yeah, I'm just going to keep that for now. Escape, calling Q. No, we don't even need, yeah, Q, right? We don't need to write because we didn't make any changes. So now that it's NBDev, instead of looking at their documentation and figuring it all out again for myself, I am going to look at other repos that I maintain that I have already NBDevitized, so I can sprinkle in the magic fairy dust based on my own previous experiences. So if I remember correctly, the most important one really is OAuth, a long-running library now that I keep. And that, you can see it has a settings.ini, but what we really want it to do is to go into the NBS folder, and that's kind of a big issue now. That's already something I want to keep in mind. So I am going to git move star.ipynb into NBS, the notebook's location, and I do it under Git. So if I do a Git status, Git is going to know that those 3 files moved. Plus it's going to know all those other files are there as well. It's actually a pretty big Git status as far as you know, these are all renamed from being moved, and then these are all the new files that have been added for the most part. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And there's already a few things inside the NBS directory. There's an index.ipynb, which is kind of like a README. That's going to become the main documentation page. There's a YAML file, there's CSS. There's a lot that converts this into web pages. People use this for blogging systems. Most of the things you might think to use a Jupyter Notebook for creatively, NBDev handles it. It's, you know, a notebook developer. It's developers who like Jupyter Notebooks, right? So that was the first change I made, but I did that because when I looked over here in OAuth, I looked for my IPYNB, my notebook files, didn't see them, and then remembered, oh, they put them in here. And in here, following their convention, I named the main file 00_core.ipynb, and I'm going to load that up because that's going to give me the little magic, the codes, the magic words that I am going to copy and paste. Oh, I didn't want new Bing. I must have clicked the link. All right. Color coding I'll kick in a second. All right. All right. So there's front matter, output file, core.html, and a title. All right, fine. I'll take it. I suppose my output file will be MOZ Pro.html, and the title is MOZ Pro. Yeah, I'll say API. So that takes care of the front matter. And then the default export, the file name it's going to default to exporting. Here they use core, but I am going to use MOZ Pro. I'm staying consistent with that system. You might have seen me demonstrate where I did a MOZ Pro.py. This will create a MOZ Pro.py. And it'll do it just by mere fact that I'm telling it with this combination here. That's the $. Is that a vertical bar? That's the pipe symbol. So $pipe is the token that's used. So the default export will be MOZ Pro. And let's see what else I'm going to lift here. There's the this command that has nothing to do with NBDev. That's the uncompromising code formatter. So every time you run a cell, it just auto formats it the way that everyone in the Python world thinks you should be auto formatting it. This file is going to not be included, but it's going to, for the documentation system, load everything, I guess, into local scope for creating documentation. I don't fully understand that one yet, but I guess I'll do it. Now it gets to the part that I understand quite well, and everything that's in this export, the cell that has this export, comment at the top, and look, this has no space in here. This one has a space there. This one has a space there too. So I guess I'll figure it out. But this goes at the top of this, and now everything in here will be exported as mozpro.py under a file, and I think that's all I really need from here, right? I took those little things. Now I can show some before and after. I go into the MOZ directory, and now the MOZ directory is going to have another subdirectory called MOZ. The MOZ directory has a subdirectory called MOZ, in which it has already output kind of a default core.py, but that is not what I want. That probably came from a 00 core.py that it might have put by default here. Oh, and look, this one got recreated out there. That's because there's stuff in memory. There's the 00.core. A few things. First, I got to get rid of this one and probably do my changes over again. Oh, well, I'll keep my changes. What I'll do is I'll shut down all the running kernels, and I'll close all the tabs. These are two things that you do together to get everything out of memory and to keep them from trying to pop back into memory all the time. I might have lost some changes, but I know I've committed everything recently. I don't have my notebook auto-saving. I changed that default. But now I can just drop this on top of that because I know it's the latest version of the same thing. So I drop that into the NBS directory. It's going to ask to overwrite it. That's fine. Overwrite it. I don't need to do that through Git because Git already did it to the original file. It is tracking it there. And so now it's probably a good time for a commit. We want to do this one more time to take a look at the changes. And NBDev itself has the ability to do what I'm about to show you, but I found another way to do it for when I'm doing this without NBDev. Blah, 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 blah. I know it comes across as a little bit chewing gum sentences here, but this clean notebooks actually cleans everything in this directory. It strips out IPython notebook metadata. So one downside of notebooks, as opposed to just .py files, is they tend to pollute up GitHub or Git repositories and subsequently GitHub repositories. And what this does is it just steps through everything in your directory and cleans it, strips out all that metadata. So when I do a git status, it's going to be the exact same thing, but when I do a git diff, which I won't do because there's going to be so much, it has a lot more detail. In fact, I should do a git diff. It's not going to be that much changed. There's just this green stuff put in, and the green stuff put in, you can see, is mostly these little symbols, the symbols that show in the cell. This is going to show in the cell. This stuff here shows in the cell, and all the other green lines around it are the metadata that belong to that cell. That's some metadata that actually belongs in there. Here's this one, and there should be one more there, right? So that's exactly right. Those are the changes I want to commit to the Git repo. So I can do git commit NBDev-ifying. And then I can git push that. So that's committed. That's committed off-site now on GitHub. I'm not going to lose that work. So what does that do for us? What that does for us is, in the past, when I needed a .py file equivalent of a notebook, I had to actually create it, and there it is right there. I don't need that anymore, and I will allow Git to remove it because it is tracked under Git. So MOZ Pro.py ls. So this home directory of the repo, this top level repo directory, root of the repo, once again does not have that many files in there. In fact, that credential should go away. That's not tracked by the repo. In fact, there's a lot of stuff here that's not tracked by the repo, which, oh, look, clean NBS poked up back there again. Move clean NBS.ipymb back into NBS. ls, right? It starts to get really clean in that top level thing. And here we close that, we discard changes. I never really change that, but we also want to make sure it is removed, the kernel, so it doesn't keep getting recreated in the wrong directory. Now there's some magic stuff. The clean process that I just did usually comes first. Okay, so there's a few things. NBDev clean. That should clean all the notebooks, all the metadata out of the notebooks that are in that subdirectory, and I think it'll do it from here. I don't think I have to be CD'd into there. Now here's the thing. There's a subdirectory called MOZ, cd MOZ, or I'll just do an ls from here, ls MOZ. So it's actually showing you that extra level of MOZ subdirectory. If I did cd in there, because you should see, it should be made very clear that inside your Git repo, there is another folder created by NBDev of the exact same name. That at first seems odd, but that is a convention in the Python world for creating and releasing packages to the world, usually through the PyPy, pypi.org, the PyPy repo index, where software is. When you pip install, that's where it comes from. This is the convention of the people who maintain the pip install system. So NBDev leans into all these conventional standards, even though it's a framework, and I hate frameworks because frameworks are opinionated. This is one of the less objectionable of frameworks because it embraces many very standard conventions out there. And you don't have to learn that much new, but some of the new stuff you do learn is, let's see, I'm going to go back one level up, and I'm going to NBDev tab in order to see the choices, and I'll just hit the tab once this time. No, I have to hit the tab twice. There we go. NBDev clean we just did. We did this one here. Now we're going to do docs. We're going to attempt to make some docs. I don't know if it's going to work, but this is one of the things you very typically do before you do the export. So it's installing that thing Quarto that I didn't have before. Sometimes when you run the things for the first time, it doesn't install. NBDev isn't the only product to do that. You'll find that with Puppeteer and stuff like that. The first time you run a thing, there are components that are often optional and left out, and they don't want to install it with the initial install just in case you're not using it. And I typically don't even use the doc stuff. I'm just doing that because I'm trying to get myself to use it. Some powerful stuff there. So after Quattro is installed, I'm going to NBDev export, right? So most of the stuff you want to use, so I did this one, NBDev new. And then after that, most of the stuff you want to do is clean docs and export. Come on, Quattro. I should really see what those other things are. You know, while that's going on, I'll open another shell up and I'll see if there's built-in help so we can see what those different things are. Or maybe we'll go to the website and look, right? When you're trying to figure out how things work, there's usually NBDev-help. There's usually built-in help, but it's not found. So one of these things is going to be the help. Maybe README. Well, that's the problem, chicken and egg. You don't know which to choose. So we'll look at the website while that install is going on. So the site has really come a long way since I last looked at it. It was very rough around the edges. Now it's a little bit less rough around the edges. It's very much geared towards mobile design once. It's the way people are doing it these days. It just feels a little bit odd. It's like your screen is a giant mobile phone. I'll say I have that as well, but I think I've dealt with those issues a little bit better than the NBDev site has. So get started. All right. Delightful. You should hear Jeremy Howard talk. If you haven't heard Jeremy Howard on the YouTubes, Google his name up, listen to a few of his talks. He says delightful a lot, and he is a delightful person to listen to. This is mostly his creation. There's some other people involved. So you saw us pip install NBDev. Here's those commands. Here's the documentation of those commands. This actually even helps you do PyPy stuff. This is how I release the PyPy now. It'll bump your versions and all that happy stuff. Sorry for me jumping around. I should use the keyboard shortcut on the screen now for doing that. Setting. Okay, so this is still part of NBDev docs. It was a longer process than I thought it was going to be, but it's because I'm running it for the first time. All right, it actually looks like that was successful. It shows output and stuff, but oh no, there's some errors up there. Okay, well, clear. And we're going to do that before and after again. We're going to ls into the MOZ location from here, and you can see it just has those 3 files. Now we're going to do NBDev. I'll do the tab again. NBDev export. And this process should be considerably faster. There we go. And now I will do a ls in there, and you can see it created mozpro.py. Now I'm going to have some path issues to fix because I know I've been doing some stuff in the notebook that is now broken paths, but I will be able to fix that now that you can see I've vim MOZ Pro. Oh yeah, moz/mozpro.py. And this is an auto-generated file. It will warn you of that fact before you start editing it. Right, see, there's the auto-generated, do not edit. And then here's stuff it does in order to make the IntelliSense-like features of different software work. And then here is stuff that is pretty much exactly the same as the contents of the notebooks in the NBS directory, which I actually have to go in now because I do need to fix some relative path links now, namely on the Chrome automation. That's the one that export is picking up. I'm also going to export probably this one here at some point, but first I want to fix some paths. Anything that uses a relative path is not going to work. So this assets here is not going to work. I'm just going to do the easy fix by giving it the full path from the top. So that's going to be in repos/moz/assets. And I know for other people who don't use the exact same paths, it might not work quite the same. But you know what? Use my drink me script and it will, right? That's the point of all this. You know, if you use a virtual machine as a generic interoperable, portable, layer, they can have the same paths for everyone. You don't have to customize them off of the average center line. This is very much average for a Ubuntu install. A default user called Ubuntu, so it's home, Ubuntu, repos, and then the repo name. So it's a good system. Other places where things get outputted and referred to with relative paths has to be fixed. Here's one. It goes directly into downloads. So when it actually is downloading, it should have this whole same prefix here. Here. And maybe I should use a variable there. Is that where the downloads go? Download path, home Ubuntu downloads. Once upon a time I used that, so that is no longer the case. I want the downloads to now go, well, you know what? I'm going to keep it like this for now. I'm not going to make that many changes out of the gate. That downloads could be different from this downloads. One could be for the browser, and one could be for kind of a post-download file move. So I need to get my thoughts straight on that. I think that's the only relative to the repo directory path. Everything else is absolute, which is really good for when you're doing this kind of stuff. So I save, and to test it now, I can quit out of this, clear. I'll do one more export because now that I made that change, it's not reflected in the .py file. This export has to occur before you use changes that you've done in the Python notebook file, which is a benefit VS Code people will say, oh, you just edit PY files directly. You don't have that step. Yeah, well, now you're going to have to deal with which PY files are your testing files and which are in production, right? You're going to have to do Git forking or whatever you have to do. You're going to have to find another way. But if just the files that are in Jupyter Notebook are your experimental files and the ones that are exported by a system like NBDev are your production files, you don't have to worry about it because, you know, not until you're happy with your changes do you allow it to export, right? This command you trigger off when you're ready for your changes to be deployed. Anyhow, we can double check now that I've done the NB export. I can once again vim that file. I can drop to the bottom where I know it's close to where that happens, and we can see there is the absolute path: home, Ubuntu, repos, MOZ, downloads. All right, so that's good. Now I should also be able to run it from inside that location. So first we're going to look in the downloads directory. So we're going to ls downloads. We're going to remove that from downloads. I'll ls it again so you can actually see it's empty in there. And now we are going to cd into the sub-MOZ directory, and we're going to Python MOZ Pro keyword NBDev, just to be a little meta about it. I expect an error. Can't be that easy, right? I will remind you, this is doing browser automation as well. Chrome is being loaded. The MOZ product is being loaded into Chrome. It's logging in. It's surfing to the right place, Keyword Explorer. It's typing NBDev into Keyword Explorer. It's hitting the Analyze button, and after it's done, it's hitting the Export CSV button. This is browser automation under a exported NBDev.py file, a package exported by NBDev. I could distribute this to the world, and they could have some pretty similar functionality, except for the fact that the Chrome automation part of it is a little bit fragile. Unless you're using my DrinkMe script, then it's not nearly as fragile. So this is taking a little bit longer than I expected or hoped. I'm wondering if the browser stuff has tripped up and is waiting for something to occur in the browser. So, interestingly enough, I can Control-C out of this, and even though it tells you not to edit that file, I can totally vim that file and where headless is set to false, if it detects that it's where headless is set to true, if it detects that it's not inside of a notebook, I can just change headless equals false. And now when I rerun that script, it will pop up the browser and we'll actually be able to follow along with where it goes wrong. Oh, look at that. That's Chrome. Oh, wait, there it goes. I wonder if it was because I had Windows Chrome loaded. This is taking long. I'm going to close out of this one. Yeah, it's just slow. Oh, relative paths for login. I think I have one more relative path issue. Yeah, yeah, that just disappearing like that when it got up to that login thing is almost certainly indicative of a path problem. So instead of using the exported file for testing, I'll do what I should have done in the first place, is just test the original Jupyter version of it in its new location inside here. So I think we're going to find MOZ creds. Well, that is a nice fixed location. Absolute paths. So we'll try it fresh. Oh, this one here is set as code. That should be markdown. Although I don't think that matters. Oh, pops Chrome. Slow. By the way, I'll be doing all this on a Mac as well. This is a pretty old laptop at this point. This is an i5 from a few years ago, personal laptop. I do a lot of my Windows stuff on my personal laptop. I have a Mac from work, but I'm doing a swap because of this battery thing that's going on with it. So I'm on my old slow Windows machine for a while here, and in processes like this you can see it. It's normally not that way. Now I think the same thing's going to happen. This is just going to pop away because of something that is different now than it used to be. And diagnosing this stuff can be a little difficult when it just pops away because of concurrent mode, and we have to use concurrent mode or asynchronous mode because of compatibility with Jupyter Notebook. Otherwise we could use synchronous or sequential mode. So let's see. The MOZ site pops up, and I don't think I have pause to record set. This is a great way to record your sequences. And then it's going to try to log in, and then it's going to go to this location, but it's poofing away. You know, I'm going to change the slow motion. It might be as simple as waiting for objects to be available. I'm going to set slow motion to 200. As if it wasn't slow enough. When screen recording isn't going on and it's happening headlessly from the command line, it all gets a lot more snappy. It presumably waits until like the page build is mostly finished before it moves on. Waiting for cache. There we go. Oh, wait a minute. It did not like my username and password. It balked at my username and password. It should not have. Let's see that again. I hope to actually use this video. I guess this is where I add the fact that I actually even just YouTube, because I don't have to video edit. When you have to turn around and focus as much time on editing as the actual work you're doing, I find it's defeating the purpose. I do this to get better for myself, and you know, I shoot the videos because it's not that much work in addition to what I'm already doing to shoot the videos. I just share the experience. And by the time I have to like load editing software and figure out the edits and blah blah blah, it's like a whole nother job. It's like doing the work twice. And homie don't play that. So I am fairly certain this is just timing issues. But so much for a successful video right out of the gate from NBDev-ifying this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to bank this as a win, and I'm going to work on these timing problems, and when the screen recorder isn't running, because I think this is enough going on that I shouldn't tax the system anymore by trying to share it with y'all. But you saw it work in other videos, and so, oh yeah, it went back to login here. It must have been some sort of timeout after some amount of default time on that screen. Shall we give it one more try, because that slow motion gave us some improvements, and I can just increase that by a factor of 10 if I want to. I'll just double it. Slow motion 400. 500. We'll go with 500. Now let's see if going this slow will make a difference. Oh, it's like watching paint dry. Oh, look at that. It moved. No, that's the correct spot. I thought I was looking in that directory level up here. None of the notebooks got accidentally moved to that top level directory. That's good. The only one loaded into memory is this one. That last time I thought I got it running, I didn't. I am going to restart the kernel and all that stuff. And then I'm just going to run this cell and not any of the other NBDev stuff. And you know you hit the run when this becomes an asterisk. You can also see this is genuine Google Chrome here. This is not Chromium. This is not the Chromium that comes bundled with Playwright. You can also tell because it's got my dark color theme and my icon for this particular user that I'm using the Chrome profile of. Maybe I should show you the code as I go. What it's doing here is it's going to, oh, and it just disappeared. So it tries to log in, and if it doesn't, it just moves ahead to the page that it can reach only once logged in. So this could succeed or fail, and I'm not going to make you wait through this futzing around to work out these things, but I might actually share this video because that was indeed the NBDev-ifying of a file, moving the files into their correct subfolders now, and the outputting of the files into their correct subfolders, and the setup.ini, the NBDev new, and all that stuff. So this had some value to it. Let's call it done.